president into the deadly crossfire. General Cabell had been assistant director of the CIA until Kennedy fired him after the Bay of Pigs showdown. Even George Bush Sr. was suspected of being involved in the assassination plot, as he was at the time deeply involved in the CIA and in the Bay of Pigs invasion plot. Lee Harvey Oswald had been employed by ex-FBI agent Guy Bannister, who was also supposed to be involved in the recouping of Cuban exiles for covert CIA missions into Cuba. By coincidence, on the day of the assassination, Richard Nixon also happened to be in Dallas, supposedly on business for Pepsi-Cola. Close to 60 people who were either witnesses or connected with some phase of the operation would die under mysterious circumstances in the years and months following the assassination. It was now becoming apparent to the US and the rest of the world that the CIA were capable of anything.
Our goal is not the victory of might, but the vindication of right. Not peace at the expense of freedom, but both peace and freedom here in this hemisphere, and we hope around the world. God willing, that goal will be achieved. Thank you and good night.
Don't involve Rasta in your say. Rasta don't work for no CIA.
Bob Marley, born in 1945 in Kingston, Jamaica, revolutionized the world with his music. More than a music genius, he used his art form as a conduit for social awakening. He wrote uncompromising conscious songs for and about the disenfranchised people of the West Indian slums. He was an icon of honor and hope for those that had none. Bob Marley stood as a conscious figure in Jamaican politics when he united the hands of political rivals Michael Manley and Edward Seaga. However, his popularity with people extended across the seas, and he became a spokesman through his lyrics, crying out against oppression, slavery, injustice, and war. In 1980, for Zimbabwe's independence, President Mugabe enthusiastically invited Bob Marley to perform at the celebrations. He was greatly admired throughout the world for his message of African unity and civil justice. Songs like Africa Unite, War, So Much Trouble in the World, Jericho Walls, Redemption Song show the direction and power of his lyrics. It was no secret that Bob and his associates, being powerful revolutionaries, were closely monitored by the CIA. When Bob Marley was suddenly diagnosed as having melanoma cancer, a rare cancer for blacks, rumors of CIA involvement surfaced. In May 1981, the legend passed away, and the world was in shock. It was said that when in France for another ailment, he was given an overdose of radiation. Some blamed his cancer on his use of marijuana. However, melanoma cancer is not caused by marijuana usage. In death, his message lives through his music, scribed in the books of immortality. Throughout the CIA's brief history, we have seen the revelation behind many of their actions. Consequently, any statement made by the agency is routinely being questioned. This lends a certain measure of unwarranted credence to some of the most paranoid and far-fetched stories about its operations and objectives. For more than 50 years, the CIA was willing to remove any source they perceived as a threat to their survival. They effectively exhausted the excuse that communism was an overwhelming danger and that no action could be considered extreme in their fight to put an end to it. As far as they were concerned, the means always justified the end. With the Red Menace now only confined to Cuba, the company can no longer excuse its methodology for conducting business. Will it be possible to ever fully dismantle the CIA? According to the Hydra of Greek myth, you can cut the head off and 10 more will grow back in its place. The only way really to effectively close down the agency would be to revoke its character and cut off its money. But again, is this possible? For years, the agency has received defense budgets, all without the authorization of Congress. The agency also receives an income from various ongoing investment enterprises that range from drug trafficking to the ownership of airlines and banks. The agency's ties to some of the world's most powerful organizations guarantees them a strong support system. The CIA could in fact stand alone as a vast autonomous entity, operating either for hire or as it did before, according to its own agenda. In the new century, the CIA is a forgotten menace. The new government, they say, has little need for their dirty tricks. There is no more communist threat. There is no enemy physically suitable for the CIA to attack. The power that they once exercised has very little sympathy in this new, bold era. All the old enemies have faded from the battlefield, and the CIA, like an old weapon, is rusting away. Or is it? The events of the 11th of September will mark the return of the jackal and issue a brand new lease of life to the old company.
This is a callous violation of international law and the United Nations Charter. It is a deliberate effort of a powerful atheistic government to subjugate an independent Islamic people.
December 1979. Russia, ignoring international condemnation, waged war on the Asian country of Afghanistan. The Russians were met by a surprisingly determined 250,000-strong unified Muslim army bent on purging this communist terror from their land. The tenacious Mujahideen, armed with Russian-made Kalashnikovs, became the freedom warriors glamorized by films such as Rambo 3. Their steadfast faith was their only asset. When Ronald Reagan succeeded Carter as president, he blessed the Mujahideen, calling them freedom fighters, and covertly backed this insurgents with billions of dollars of state-of-the-art military equipment. In their eyes, this was Russia's Vietnam. And like America almost a decade earlier, duration would eventually erode Russian morale. The CIA came into the picture and was responsible for training these Muslim warriors in the art of sabotage and other covert tactics. The international Western media sanctioned this war and reiterated its holy objectives. The Muslims opposed communism on religious grounds and the West on political grounds. In theory, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Osama bin Laden came to Afghanistan from a rich and prominent family in Saudi Arabia, where he was the 17th son of more than 50 siblings. With his money and powerful Saudi connections, he rallied financial support for the Afghan cause and became its greatest private financier. Being involved in his family's construction company gave him the necessary skills to build much-needed roads and hospitals in Afghanistan. Osama became a source of mystical inspiration for many. He was a man who sacrificed a life of luxury for a life of dedication to his Muslim brothers. In 1989, what was thought impossible became reality when Russia retreated, defeated, and humiliated from Afghanistan. 15,000 Russians and over 1 million Afghan warriors were lost in this 10-year holy war. December 1991. With the fall of the Soviet Union, America rejoiced as years of anti-communist rhetoric and Cold War tactics had triumphed. In America's eyes, democracy had prevailed as light outshines darkness. America, having what she really wanted, turned away from Afghanistan and all the promises she had made. Afghanistan was left in ruins. 2/3 of the population became refugees.
Once we had won the war, or once, or I should say the Afghans won the war with our help, we walked away. We walked away and we left it to Pakistan and we left it to Saudi Arabia to rebuild the area and to reestablish civil order.
For Afghanistan, the success bred of devotion had paid off, and now the warriors sought to continue their success by fighting against oppression on a global scale. In Bosnia, Chechnya, Kashmir, Sudan, and Somalia.